This show is proudly brought to you by the #Me Network. Access granted.
Kia ora, and thanks so much for tuning in to episode 62 of Access Granted, our weekly Kiwi tech and media podcast. I'm Raj, my background's in film design, media and making things happen.
And I'm Mike, and my background is explaining stuff, connecting people and getting things done. And you're here with us in, where are we, Raj?
We're at Pachanga Mexican Kitchen here on Courtney Place.
Yeah, very nice. Beautiful music in the background, but hopefully they can hear it. And you're here because you want to hear the music, and also you're a Kiwi that either works in or has a great passion for tech or media in New Zealand. So it's episode 62. Oh my lord. And this show will be catching up with Brendan Ritchie from DTS. But before the interview, just to let you know that plans are still growing for the end of year event. And so we'd like you to ping us on Twitter at AccessGrantedNZ and tell us who your tech or media heroes in New Zealand are. And then we'll try and get them all together in a room and you guys can come and watch us jibber jabber live. Righty-ho.
Right, so Brendan, I've known Brendan for a while. I was a customer of his at a previous company I had. He runs an ISP called DTS, so he works with CityLink and a few other providers locally that does business solutions.
What's the business solution?
Business solution. So it's all high-end and fibre, things like that.
Full on, doesn't go down, work all the time.
100% uptime, all that kind of malarkey. Yeah. And so he's been focusing on the business customers for the last few years. But they've got in other areas like the VoIP services. So he was my first contact or introduction into using digital phones rather than soft phones, rather than the hard landlines.
Yep.
Then I just went straight to mobile anyway, but And so this is his story, Right, we're here at Golding's Free Dive again with Brendan Ritchie from DTS. Thanks for coming on Access Granted, Brendan.
Very welcome.
And, we'll get into why I'm talking to you today. But first question I always ask is, what makes you happy?
Summertime on the Gold Coast, my kids and the pool in the backyard that was recently finished. Yeah, probably a bit of a cliche, but I'm a pretty basic person. That and watching rugby on TV after the kids go to bed.
Nice. So you're based in the Gold Coast, but you run a New Zealand company, New Zealand Australian company.
Yeah, that's it. I think we're still... The majority of our business is still in New Zealand in terms of revenue, so it's that's still the case. And of our 22 staff, all but 5 are still based in New Zealand. Oh, right. And of those staff members, we've got staff working in Christchurch, Wellington, Hamilton, and Auckland. So 2 countries, 5 cities, 22 staff. It's quite a distributed workforce.
Yeah. Well, lucky you're in the internet game then.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier. It's interesting because you've got the sort of tyranny of distance, but you've also got time zones to work through, so you've actually got client demands are different across time zones, and then within Australia you've then got WA is very different than the East Coast, for example. So there's a lot of challenges that come in, but it's also probably not as hard as you think. Yeah.
So how did you start it up in the end? Because basically we had a monopoly of ISP for a while, and then a few others came in the market. How did you one day just decide I want to be an internet provider? Or
no, I actually had nothing to do with DTS until about 5 years into its history. So I'm the benefactor of nepotism. So that is to say that my parents own half the company. Right. And so I got involved basically when they set up in Australia. But in terms of how the company started, so two guys basically kicked the company off. Colin South, who is still based in New Zealand, and Steve Ritchie, who is my father, and he, along with my mum, are based in the Gold Coast now as well. Mm-hmm. And they both work for another ISP in Wellington called Hectrix. Oh, yeah. They were both made redundant early 2001 perhaps, somewhere around there. And they thought, back in those days, I think people got redundancy packages, which is a bit of a novelty now, I think. But they managed to use that money effectively and started up DTS, and basically managed, and I guess a lot of this goes down to Steve's sales prowess at the time. He got a lot of government business who are still clients today, so got a lot of key government departments that we look after, and from there built into other cities through more clients, and more points of presence and more staff, and
yeah. And so you've pushed into Australia. How long have you been out there too? It's been a while, eh?
So, I think 2007 perhaps is about the right sort of timeline for that. So we've got a point of presence in Sydney, in Economics Data Centre over there. We connect with all the usual players, Focus, Telstra, APT, which is now TPG, and a bunch of others. But we've got an office on the Gold Coast, so we're actually a little bit unique in that lifestyle decisions dictated strategy. I guess the benefit of being a director for Steve and Julie was that they got to choose that when they wanted to move to the Gold Coast, they got to also set up the business there.
Nice.
And Colin went along with that, and that's how we got set up in Australia. So, but look, I guess I sort of say that half-heartedly, but the reality is it gave us a point of difference for a long time before the market caught up, which was we're one of the only ISPs to be able to offer end-to-end services over a single network in New Zealand and Australia on a single currency invoice with the same support desk on each side. And that gave us a point of difference for some of those enterprise customers that it took probably another 5 years for the rest of the market to catch up on. Now you've got Vocus doing it, you've got Vibe doing it, you've probably got a number of others I'm missing, but we're no longer alone in that space. But for a while, it was a good business to be in.
You were the starter. You started it, right? Yeah.
I think so.
One of the early guys. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Telecom back in the day bought APT, of course. They had ownership in that for a while, but they never managed to integrate the businesses. They never managed to, if you went to APT and said, what could you do in New Zealand for me? They didn't work with Telecom closely enough to come up with an end-to-end solution. So they were, they never capitalised on the opportunity they had through that acquisition.
And so it's not just internet though, right? Because I remember when we used your services, it's got to be years ago now, we first engaged you to do phone, internet, some other data stuff, some backup in there.
Yeah.
So you've sort of got a range of services rather than just, hey, here's the internet. Ta-da.
Yeah, there's no margin in anything anymore. So if you do one thing, you're not going to be around for long. And people don't want a million different invoices. So the issue is that it's hard to do everything well, particularly if you're not the biggest company. So you've got to get scale, and we've really driven scale. So I sort of said it before, but I don't think that if you're a company, a telco, an ISP or a telco, and you're earning probably less than $5 million, and you don't have some pretty innovative plans or dynamic plans for growth, I don't think you're going to be around in 24 months. There's too many barriers to your success at that level. So for us, it was about going, let's get beyond that $5 million turnover so that we're in a position to be able to have the staff and the knowledge and the in-house development skills to deploy top-end solutions for clients. So that ended up being including a purchase of another company in December that specialised in IP voice. So that allowed us to very much have our own telephony network. As you said, ISP is the core business. Then you've got managed routers, managed firewalls, hosting. There's other options, I guess, things like network management as well, and I guess network architecture. There's a lot of other things we can do without conflicting with our channel, who are primarily managed service providers in the LAN space. So, we're trying to add a lot of extra services, but be careful not to annoy our partners, and also, I guess, not to overextend our capabilities to the point that we do anything in a sort of a half-hearted fashion.
How have you found competing in our market and in Australia with the big boys, this perceived big boys? How do you find battling those guys?
In the retail space, it's fine. They have higher overheads. They're not as lean, and I don't know that they've got the they haven't really got the personalised touch. But it's my concern with the consolidation in the market and the way that the sort of monolithic players are sort of becoming even more so is more in the wholesale space. You look at Australia, it wasn't that long ago that you had a number of wholesale options. You had the TPGs, you had APT, at one point had Pipe as a separate entity, Vocus, etc., etc. Now, TPG's bought APT, IINet's getting bought by TPG as well, by the looks of it. So TPG's becoming this massive player. You've got Vocus buying Amcom. The number of options for you to go to get a wholesale service is decreasing by the day almost. So again, it sort of takes the choice out of your hand. If you get bad service in the wholesale space, what do? Not much.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, it's not really an issue because you've got the government mandated UFB rollout, so it's okay. In Australia, the NBN side of things doesn't really focus on business, and it's sort of infant stage, I guess. But in the retail space, the bigger the company, the easier they are to compete, is my experience.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's cool.
It's interesting though, going back to your point around business from the Gold Coast. I think
that's the coolest thing.
Yeah,
I love it. It sounds awesome.
I like it too. I guess there's a couple of issues with it though. If you haven't got the right management working with you, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. We're lucky because Colin's daughter also works for us, Danny, and she works in the Upper Hutt office. So I guess in terms of ownership or I don't know what the word is. I guess just in terms of the feeling that someone's running the shop. Danny's there, she's doing that. But we've also got Daniel, who's been working with us. He's the sales manager for, I think you know Daniel.
Yeah, I know Daniel.
He's been with us for, I think, 10 years.
Wow, yeah.
Close to, yeah. Because we don't have staff turnover of any note, the people we have on are long-term employees, so we all trust to get on with well. And, I think that's the trick. You got to have good people. And
how do you find good people? There's always that question out there in the market, and can't find the people I want. Well, they're really hard to find them.
That's a really good question, actually. I think, we haven't always got it right, but then you sort of have to make the call within 3 months that you've got it wrong, and your parties need to move on. But I think, I don't know. I think people are also sort of as good as you allow them to be sometimes. We've had some. I think sometimes you can have really talented, gifted people underperform when they're not given the right opportunity, and I think maybe not having someone watch over their shoulder, or me not being right over their shoulder, allows them to maybe...
a bit more autonomy to get on with it,
We also have staff working from home a lot as well, so we've got offices, but we do have a number of staff working from home, and not having to commute in Auckland, for example, is a pretty big bonus.
Yeah, that's cool.
And if you're giving them a 200 meg USB internet connection to work over, it's not so bad.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, it's a really good point and a good question, because it comes down to money. You have to be able to pay well, and we've worked really hard to make sure that we can. You have to look hard to add benefits, and that is that lack of commute, the internet access, the freedom to not have a boss watching over your shoulder. So part of it, I think, comes down to trust and getting it back. But I guess too, because we've picked some good people and they don't leave, we haven't had to do it too many more times. If that makes sense as well.
That's cool.
But
it's less hassle, isn't it, as well?
Yeah,
and everyone's happy, which is good.
The reality is though that you still have to travel a lot. Like I still travel 1 week out of 4, and we've got a lot of business. So we've got 20 UFE exchanges enabled around New Zealand now. We're one of the top 10 connected ISPs in New Zealand, although people don't tend to know that. So there's only 5 or 6 exchanges left for us to put our gear into. So we've got areas like Ashburn and Timaru, a whole bunch of places that I now need to get to. Ashburn's actually a really big market for us, which is weird. But I find that to establish a relationship, you have to actually meet face to face. You have to convince them that you're not sort of fly-by-nighter, that you're pretty legit, that basically you're not a dickhead. Because that's important. People don't like dealing with dickheads.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, if you meet with them first up, and then once you've established that face-to-face relationship, then Skype does it, voice calls do it, whatever, that's okay. But, and we're very much in a growth phase, so I'm trying to establish a lot of new relationships, and that requires travelling. And I think the other thing that you miss with a very distributed workforce is passive knowledge. You sometimes you don't know the questions to ask. You learn things by hearing other conversations around you. You learn things by hearing clients ask co-workers things around you, and you can't hear that if you don't work around anyone. So I also quite like every now and then just spending time in the other offices with other people, and so as much as I'm an advocate of the ability of people to work from home when that's the best solution for that person or for us in a particular city, and as much as I like working on the Gold Coast, managing a company from New Zealand, there's still certainly a need to spend some time with your co-workers.
That's how you grow as a company, right? You grow as a team. The knowledge is spread out. So I notice a lot of companies, the communication is an issue for a lot of companies. And it's down to not being in front of each other a lot, or walking around in the campfire, it's interesting.
My dream is still definitely to get to the point where even in a crazy time zone like, say, the south of France, I could spend 3 months a year doing that and just, have a really good internet connection, work some weird hours, but make it work,
Yeah, that's cool.
That would be
I'm all about the balance, being out of the office most of the time.
That'd be great.
I'd still be able to deliver,
Yeah, that's it. And the only thing is I'd have to convince the directors that was something that would work. And that's where I might fall over.
They took a punt on the Gold Coast.
Well, that's true.
And that's worked out well.
It is only 3 hours away from Auckland, though. It's
there you
not
go.
12 or 14 or 16 or 20 hours. But that's the other thing. Wherever you work, I think you need a good airport. You have to have a good airport with decent routes. Gold Coast is probably about as the bare minimum. It's not a great airport. It's not. It doesn't have a lot of direct destinations, but Yeah, that's the trick.
Yeah, got stranded there once.
Really?
And, yeah, I had a Jetstar flight. A friend of mine booked it.
Oh God!
Because I don't normally do Jetstar.
Yeah, no.
And we rock up there, and it's the guys on the counter said, "Oh no, sorry, that's cancelled." Okay, when's the next one? Tomorrow. My friend owns a business in Auckland. He has to be. It's a retail business. He had to be there that next few hours, next day. I was pretty flexible, but so in the end we hoofed it to Brisbane on a rental car and made it 10 minutes before the next plane took off from Brisbane to Auckland.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that was fun times. Gold Coast Airport.
Well, I think it was yesterday that Jetstar had some plane that had to divert to Newcastle instead of Sydney because they had some weird smell in the cockpit, which is nice. And then when they actually landed there, they made everyone go the rest of the way to Sydney on a bus instead of getting another flight. So that would have been fun for everyone involved.
Wow.
So, yeah, don't fly Jetstar.
It's all about that user experience, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so I hear, I'll read your blog and stuff, and there's a lot of people out there who, just like any industry, there's established people who think a certain way, then there's the new, what they call upstarts, who we'd like to interview, and there's others that just sort of ask questions, right? Where do you fit into that? Because I see that you're asking questions, making points.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in theory, I've been in the industry now for getting close to 10 years, so I guess maybe the issue is that I came in not knowing anything at all, and it took me a good couple of years to start to figure out what the hell I got myself into. Right. Again, I got the job because, Daddy ran the business, so I didn't necessarily deserve the position I got. It took me a while to catch up. But I guess as I've grown into the role, grown into the market, and the company started to do better and better based on not just my decisions, but the decisions of the people that I work with, because I've worked with some ridiculously smart people. I guess I've become a little bit more analytical and understood that some things, just because a big company does something doesn't mean it makes sense. And I've felt like I've got the knowledge base to actually question some of these things. So, look, the reality is that I think if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I probably would love to be publishing in some way, shape or form. Like, I really enjoy writing, and it's... so part of it's just a hobby, and the only thing I know about to write about really is IT or ICT. And there's so much going on in the market at the moment, and it's so fluid, and so many people are doing so many dumb things or doing it badly. There's so much to write about that paints negative pictures. So I guess I'm probably seen as a pain in the arse by a number of people.
The established players.
Probably the big ones, or whoever I happen to be mentioning in an article in any given day. But, I think that I think it's really good if end users particularly, or decision makers within organisations, are reading some of those posts and sort of, particularly when we're in a period of consolidation and large companies are buying smaller companies, and in some cases smaller companies are buying bigger companies, as in the case of Walk-On before it went bust. And trying to sort of educate those people allowing themselves to be educated about the forces at play behind those decisions, because if they are currently clients with those players, how does that affect them? Are they going to see any beneficial outcomes? Are they going to see any negatives? And is it actually a long-term proposition? And I don't know. So there's a lot of but if I'm absolutely brutally honest, I write because I want our brand out there. I have to be able to justify the time I take to do this. The directors, if they say to me, why are you spending those hours each week writing a post, it's because DTS gets its name mentioned every time Computer World Tech Day, or people view it on LinkedIn or whatever, and that's the absolute brutal fact of it. But I choose to write about things that I think will give the best return for people's time taken to read it.
Well, that's why I'm an advocate of that. You've got to get your message out there. And it's a good way to promote the brand and get out there in the market. Yeah. As
long as I'm not saying anything stupid.
Yeah.
If I say something stupid, people see the stupidity
questions.
associated with the brand.
What's the harm in that, Yeah. So, especially when, people, what we've noticed, Mark and I noticed this a lot, and some of the parts of our industry where, you've always done it this way, so you just do it that way. That's it. That's the argument. That's the way you do it. Well, wait a minute. There might be a better way now, or a different way.
It's so crazy
easier way.
In an industry that's always been based on innovation. The success is invariably related to the innovation. So. It's, and just touching on that innovation, margins are so tight. Like I can't. We've got a couple of issues in this industry at the moment. One is that the companies dictating the price points by advertising them heavily are largely Vodafone and Spark. Those two companies are the ones that can most afford to run as a loss leader. But they both privately acknowledge, or certainly Vodafone does, and semi-publicly, that they don't mind running that particular division at a loss if it generates revenue in other streams. But so if they're dictating the price points, and we've got to follow those price points based on the market's perception of what is there for a fair price point, we've had to strip our margins just like every other player in the market to keep a valid option, or keep ourselves a valid option for end users. So So, okay, if your margins are going down because of market forces, what can you do to ensure that cost of sales drops in line with that drop in margin, and that you're still going to be successful by diversifying and actually creating new revenue streams for yourself? And essentially, it all comes down to innovation. Develop the hell out of your systems in-house, innovate in that regard, innovate in terms of the products you sell, and innovate in how you promote them to end users or deliver them to end users. Yeah. There's actually some companies that are doing a pretty good job of that. We compete with them in some areas, but Vibe, I think, have done a good job of diversifying and innovating. They're a pretty good little company. Voyager have done some good stuff in the voice space. Quarter have even done a reasonably good job of redefining the services post sort of analog television era, which obviously was a big earner for them. And I think Spark's on the right path as well, but then there's some real dinosaurs in the industry that just refuse to. Yeah. So I don't need to, I guess, name them right here.
You get those, and I'm sure our listeners would know who they are. They probably have to deal with them.
Yeah, that's true.
So what's the future then?
Well, I think a little while ago I made a post about, or wrote a post about there being, I think, 80 odd ISPs in New Zealand. And 80? Wow. Yeah, pretty hard. It's such a high number for a small market. But the crux of the post was there won't be that many for much longer. And I think I wrote that maybe 12 months ago, and it's already easily 10 less than it was then. Wow. So we're just going to see continued consolidation. I can't mention names, but there'll be another relatively big one in July or August. And we saw, I think, 3 last week. Was it Vodafone bought World Exchange, Rex Central was bought by Vibe. Oh no, and the third one was the one I found out about that's happening in a month or two. Market consolidation will continue. iiNet's about to go in Australia to TPG. MCOM and Vocus deal looks sealed, pending, I think, final court decision. The TPG launched, but regardless, consolidation will continue. Margins, I don't think will move much more. For margins or for prices to drop anymore for things like, say, if we focus on UFB as a product, for the price to drop anymore, either the tail cost would have to drop, and that's regulated, so that won't, or the international or national access would have to drop in terms of data pricing, and it really can't without the justification of things like the Waiki cable and next generation access cable starting to not really work out in terms of return on investment. So I don't see prices moving much more. But yeah, consolidation, people scrapping for the SME space big time. And people trying to add a hell of a lot more to the stack in terms of what they're selling to each and every user, because the residential sort of adage of items per sale is just the lifeblood of the industry, really, if you want to succeed.
Far out. So this is like a state of flux almost.
Very much so, It feels like sort of like one of the great migrations or something. It's sort of, I don't know, there's so much change.
What do you reckon will happen at the end of it all then? Or is it a constant continuum?
I don't know. It's sort of interesting, isn't it? Like, I haven't really thought much past, does there get to be some sort of self-defining number of sort of the natural number of ISPs within an industry, within a demographic? Or is it going to be that it'll cull itself to such a point that there'll only be these sort of monolithic players who have acquired everything else, and then again new little players who have maybe already been in the industry before, but their restraint to trade clauses have expired, kind of, let's talk about CB at Voyager, for example, going, hey, why don't I start up and do it all over again because I made it work last time? And maybe that's what happens, and it just builds up and builds up and builds up.
It's like a circle of life.
Maybe, that could well be it.
Wow. It's amazing,
I don't know, it's going to be interesting, though. There's a real fear of missing out in the industry in terms of these acquisitions. Everyone's going, well, the market's only so big, you can only acquire so much. But I wonder if that fear of missing out is going to drive people to pay what things really aren't worth, or pay more than they're worth. And that's the other risk. Some of these might not go well, and people may have over-leveraged and taken too big a punt, and that could be interesting as well. I mean, we've already seen it, actually, with Warren Hurst buying Orcon. That went horribly. So,
the users all lost there, right? It just makes life harder for everyone else.
It does.
And so where can people find you online? So you're blogging, so on your...
So in terms of the company, it's dtsanz.com, the blog's on there. LinkedIn, I'm always on there. Twitter, so at bcarmody, CARMODY, and but I actually use the DTS handle more, which is at DTSANZ. And that's really about it. All those places.
Cool.
But I tend to probably use LinkedIn and Twitter the most. Twitter's a great tool for business. That's I think you were very good at that as well.
I try to be, I just make it look easy. It's not,
What do you used to use, like Hootsuite or something?
I used to, a long time ago. Just because I could see everything at once, like on a dashboard. But then people used to associate that with, you're just, posting stuff and then setting the date, so you're not actually posting live and all that, which was not true. Usually I just use it because I like the app on the phone and it worked quite well.
Yeah.
But just use the basic app now.
Okay. Yeah, I use Hootsuite. I do use the scheduling feature a little bit, only when I've written a post at like midnight and then figure out I want to shoot this out tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah.
But
it is a cool tool. Like, I did assume that they were going to be taken out because Twitter slowly started doing less and less API work with third parties, and there's less and less stuff third party apps can do and all that kind of thing. So I figured, well, eventually they're all going to die off.
Okay.
But and they bought TweetDeck, so people are still using that too. Yeah, so I simplified my digital lifestyle.
Okay, fair enough. That's the thing that gets me with social media platforms is I can't be bothered with them all. There's so many options, and some of them are great. But between all my friends, there's Viber, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I don't know what else I'm missing, but there's so many.
Bebo's out. Hello's a new one. Have you seen that?
No.
It's another one. It's simplified. No ads apparently, guaranteed forever.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just another one.
Still free model version then?
Yeah.
So how do they monetize that?
No idea.
Selling the data of the users or what?
Well, that's probably what it is, because nothing's really free, right?
No, that's it.
Not on the internet, not in terms of data. So yeah, that's another new one that's come out last year or two. And, they just launched an iPhone app, so I think adoption might go up a bit now. So yeah, that's another one. But yeah, and I tried. I was looking at Pinterest the other day, and I'm not actually. I'm
you're
logged
not female,
in.
so
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I clicked off of a blog post and I went there, and as you scroll, it blocks all the content because you have to log in. So there you go, fail right there.
Yeah.
I'm not using it. See you later. And you just bounce off, So yeah, some of those social networks still haven't figured it out.
No.
Yeah. Well, neither is Twitter, I suppose.
No,
They're swapping CEOs at the moment.
Well, that's right. And they are advertising, they are doing things, but they're not getting anything like a return. They're still hemorrhaging money from what I understand.
And those ads are kind of annoying too, actually.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, but still, I guess that's the thing. We've sort of got into this culture of if it's online, it should be free. And I quite know why we all think like that, but I'm as guilty as
originally it was, I suppose, right? Open internet and all that kind of thing. Originally everything was basically free. Then they, they started display ads, and Google got involved. And now it's you're the product now, I guess. Basically, your data, right?
Well, I guess we've all got to make a living though, so everything needs to pay for itself at the very least.
Sure, yeah. Right, so you got another meeting to go.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time, especially trekking all the way from the Gold Coast just to be on our show. It's amazing.
It's all right. Thanks for sort of introducing a new cool bar to me. I haven't actually been here before, so
it's a good place. Cool, mate. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Wow, that's a really good story. I love the fact that Brendan was an apprentice.
Yeah.
In his dad's company. That's very cool. You don't hear much about apprenticeships nowadays, which is a shame. But we should do more of those. And I particularly, of course I would. I love that Brendan is shining a light on the ISP industry. So keep it up, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect a friend of ours, Mauricio, would like that as well.
Yeah, that's right. Next week we have Devin Moodley, a designer who was at Xero, but we managed to get a chat in before he scoots off to the Netherlands, where he'll be catching up with our old mate Owen Williams.
Excellent. Look forward to that. So, in fact, it's an excellent interview.
Yeah.
One of my favourites, actually.
He's a bit of a character too.
Yes, so definitely listen in for that one, guys. So find us on the social networks. Look for the podcast on Twitter @AccessGrantedNZ and similar on Facebook. And the best way to chat with us is to use Twitter. I'm at Miramar Mike.
And I'm at NZ Raj. And thanks for your time, and see you next Tuesday for the Kiwi tech people sharing their own stories. Ka kite anō.
#me.co.nz